let's meet the panelists. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Ryan Priestley, who is the president of Canadian demolition contractor Priestley Demolition, Marcel Vening, who's the managing director of marketing and sales with the Netherlands-based attachments manufacturer D&RI, and from CC, the Committee for European Construction Equipment, we have their Secretary General, Riccardo Viaggi. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Ahead of the first question, I'd like to invite you to take a minute each and just say a bit more about your company and your organisation, just to introduce them a bit more to our audience. Thank you. Riccardo, would you like to go first, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Steve. And thank you very much for having us. CC is the European industry organization representing manufacturers of construction equipment. So our members are the national associations of construction equipment manufacturing. And through our national associations, we represent roughly 1,200 companies employing directly 300,000 people and developing a turnover of roughly 40 billion euros. So we are based in Brussels, and we represent the industry towards the decision makers, but also we organize all the occasions for the industry to get together and discuss all the topics that are relevant for our ecosystem.
Great, thank you very much. And Ryan, please, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me as well, Steve. And I guess that's a tough one to follow. We're about 300 people, and we do about we work in Ontario, Canada, mostly, but we do a little bit throughout Canada, and we have some operations in the US, and we have about 100 excavators for the purpose of demolition.
And Marcel, you're very welcome too.
Thank you, Steve. This year we at D&RI have our 20th company anniversary. Founded in 2001 by me and Ruud de Gier, with both more than 30 years of experience. I want to mention some product highlights. When we started in 2001, it was a complete new development of demolition and sorting grabs. And in 2004, the completely new multi-quick processor and a patented demo power system, what was with the 4 old chambers and speed valve, and that is still a system what we use. And also in other products. So all these products are developed and engineered here in Holland by Ruud de Gier. And since 2006, we are part of the German Kinsover group. The reason of this merge was to have an accelerate access to the North American market and other parts of the world outside Europe. And we had an immediate increase in our production capacity because of the very fast growth we made at that time. We both were and are still driven by our passion for performance, so to develop and bring truly innovating products to the market. Our ambition was not to be the biggest supplier or one with the lowest price, but trying to be the best and most innovating supplier who constantly sets new standards in developments beyond the current technical boundaries. And in this way, standing out of the competition.
Right, well, thanks again. Thank you, everybody. And the title of today is Demolition Equipment Challenges. So, Riccardo, you started off with some very impressive data about CC. If we focus on companies within CC who manufacture equipment for demolition specifically, what are their thought processes just now, and what form are their future plans taking?
Yes, so I think as an industry organization, our focuses are multiple by definition, and the construction equipment perimeter is also very diverse. We represent all of the manufacturers, from the earth-moving, well-known business names, from the more specialized manufacturers of demolition attachment tools, but also the road building machines, including the tower cranes and also the concrete machinery manufacturers. So, by definition, everything is diverse in construction. There is, on the other hand, of course, a very specific concern with regards to demolition. We have a couple of we call them product groups of manufacturers of specialized demolition attachment tools that meet regularly, and we take the temperature of the industry when it comes to the market trends, but also when it comes to the regulatory challenges and the opportunities for standardization and for organization of the way the value chain performs. And I would say that the way things are shaping up in the European market mainly, but also in other markets, is an increasing importance of the demolition and decontamination industry, and that is, of course, a positive news that our members are seeing shaping up in this recovery, with a great push by the industry on the one side, also supported by the regulators and the policymakers on the other side, of insisting more and more on let's say, reasoned deconstruction, which is sometimes the word that we prefer to use even instead of associated with demolition. And that, of course, requires a diversification of the tools, an innovation of the tools, which is one of the driving forces of our members. In line with that is, of course, the increasing importance of urban regeneration. Transformation of cities is taking a huge importance in a mature market like Europe. We are looking in many countries at very specific programs for energy efficiency improvements of housing, or in general buildings, but housing being the largest stock. That's the most interesting in absolute terms. And in order to regenerate urban areas and cities, you of course need very specialized demolition tools, silent demolition tools, or other demolition tools, which our members are looking at and developing in order to meet those new challenges. Sometimes challenges which are brought about by regulation, and maybe we'll get back to that in a moment. When we look at the carrier machines, our members, which are the very known household names of the earth moving business mainly, they don't really see, so we don't really see ourselves as a provider of a carrier machine, but really as a solution provider. And that is also the way things are developing in order to mechanize, maybe automate in the future tasks which still have a very physical component, still need an engagement by people, and if this engagement brings about possible risks with it, we of course are trying every day to minimize those risks by taking into account the feedback that we get from our machinery users. So in that sense, of course, everything that with let's say takes the people away or further away from the machine as possible, the better. So those are some of the thoughts that are shaping the market in, as I said, a fairly positive market perspective with market demand on the increase. Our CC Business Climate Index, which is not just specifically to demolition, but is driven by all the major product group, is at historically high levels after the typical V-shaped during a typical V-shaped recovery. So again, the market is on the rise. The innovation needs are there, and we're taking up the challenge as an industry association.
Certainly, the positivity of the marketplace is very good to hear about. So, I mean, Ryan, you're part of that marketplace. You're a demolition contractor, and you'll be using some of those machines that are produced in the next few years. What are you looking for from equipment manufacturers?
A lot of the excavators that we're using today are, they were earth moving machines, and now we've transformed them into almost like a tool carrier. So a lot of the machines would have, any given time, 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 attachments with it all the time. So it's not uncommon now to see a machine sitting there, and then you'll see a bucket and a breaker, or a grapple and a bucket, or what have you, maybe a concrete processor of some persuasion and a bucket and a breaker. So it's shear for steel and so on and so forth. So it's really become a tool carrier. So, and then you have to outfit it all for our particular purpose, which is demolition, with some protection for the cab and so on and so forth. And some of them take it even further and protect the machine other ways with cylinders and what have you. But I think generally speaking, it's you want a tool carrier is what you really want these days. You don't want an excavator. Yes, you want to do some excavation with it, but and you want the cab to be like really comfortable. This whole pandemic and working from home, these guys have to literally go every day, and then they have to spend all day in that machine. And when the machine operator's in that machine all day, you got to think, what's he thinking about, right? So you got to be thinking about how nice the seat is, or how nice the air movement is, and the climate control and all that. And you want to be able to connect to it and be connected all the time, and have somewhere to put a coffee cup. Some of the things that you think that would be like second nature to the manufacturers, it gets overlooked, and they're always upping the horsepower and always upping the performance of the overall machine, I would say, but sometimes the creature comfort. So, and then for the tools going on the machine, it's just very hard to match up sometimes. Unless you're buying everything from the same place at the same time, it seems like they're always changing. So the end of the machine is different. So the attachment you're putting on, you have to modify all the time. So maybe some consistency with, where the actual tool mounts on the end of the excavator would be something that would be for sure something that would be could be improved upon, because it's constantly like a jigsaw puzzle. You're always trying to match and make, and you're moving machine around, and you're moving attachment around. This attachment will fit this machine, and you can't do this and you can't do that. So, and I think another thing that maybe the equipment manufacturer could look at is some kind of two-way communication. I know everyone has a cell phone, and you can certainly connect with your cell phone, but sometimes you don't need to make a phone call. And I just sometimes wonder why, these machines don't have some kind of two-way radio communication. So when you have a job site that's got multiple machines on it, guys can communicate, and the two-way radio is something you could hear with the background noise of breaking concrete or loading a dump truck or something like that. So being able to communicate machine to machine, I think would have some tremendous value. I think it would be a minor cost for a really big return. So something else I think I went to Korea a couple of years ago, and we went to the plant in Seoul, and it was like there was like a 5-ton mini excavator, and they all had two-way radios in them. And I just said to the guy, why doesn't every machine have this? He says, well, we don't really need it. Well, why these ones? Well, they're going to the government, I believe. So they had mandated they come with it, but it would just be so great to be able to say, hey, pass this over, or can you do this for me? Or can I come help you do that? Or sometimes you see someone maybe struggling with some work, and sometimes some team effort would go a long way. So to be able to communicate, and I think a lot of people sit in the cab of those machines all day until your boiling point gets so hot that you maybe just crack a little bit. So being able to communicate over radio would be good. But the machines are just constantly growing. Trying to understand the mechanics behind it, to try and repair them is getting more complicated. Growing up at a time where there was a leak here, a leak there, you just sort of went at it with a wrench and tried to tighten it up yourself. Well, nowadays you can hardly even get a wrench in there. So I think serviceability is key always.
And Marcel, as an attachment manufacturer, how much of your product development is based on what demolition machine manufacturers are doing and what contractors are specifying? Is it possible for D&RI and companies like it to pursue an independent approach to product development?
Yeah, we see some main developments with machines that are very important to the product development at D&RI. First of all, further development and sales of high-reach demolition machines, that's growing. And secondly, the focus of producers and end customers is more and more on hybrid and full electric machines to reduce emissions. Third, we see more machines of 100 tons and up, what actually normally in the past was between 20 and 50 tons, at least in the biggest market we saw. So fourth, we see more carriers below 20 tons on weight being used for demolition on top of building, working their way down. In general, the reason for these developments is buildings that need to be demolished are higher and higher. And this matches perfectly with our innovative demo power cylinder technology, which delivers the 20 to 25% more power than a standard cylinder with the same diameter. And combination with the double acting speed valve, this achieves the performance of tools that are 1 or 2 sizes bigger. What is more and more important to go quick through the demolition, and the end result is a lower weight, essential for high-reach demolition machines where the tool weight is always limited, and a higher productivity. So it also means that smaller, lighter tool carriers can be used, which also leads to lower fuel consumption and emissions. D&RI is fully independent to develop its products and very marketing driven. And of course, our product must have high added value to the current and potential new customers.
Thank you, Marcel. I'm just going to dip into a few audience questions now. And first one is to Riccardo. And the question is there a source to get the market sales data of equipment for demolition? If this is a CC source, I'm not sure you want to to hundreds of people, but I'll ask anyway.
We, as an organization, we run data collection programs. The first basic rule is that you need to be a member of the association, and then with regards to each specific, let's say, data collection program, we need to follow the competition rules and of course the basic non-disclosure agreements. But we do that for every major product with a pretty good level of let's say granularity in terms of products and also geography. So it exists. It is only open to members. That is the big but.
Okay, well, a bit of a membership drive opportunity there, no doubt. Question for Ryan. Which are the most popular hydraulic attachment tools your company uses with excavators? And what's your experience with crushing buckets? How are crushing buckets perceived in the demolition industry from your experience?
Just have to come clean first. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here, and my screen went dark for a minute there. It was apparently our backup generator is working, everyone. So I'm still here. It's okay. But so we use a variety of tools. We have a lot of LaBounty hydraulic shears. And we have a lot of Epiroc hammers, but we use a wide variety of hydraulic tools. We probably have over 150 hydraulic tools. We have some D&RI, Marcel. I know I want to make sure I'm near and dear to your heart there, but so, and we have, we've tried various brands, almost all the brands, to be honest. So trying to find a consistent one that's got support near us is where we're trying to lean to. Crusher buckets, we've never really taken crusher buckets too seriously in the sense that we have like 5 mobile crushers, so we don't have a lot of smaller jobs that would require crusher.
And still on an equipment theme, a question with the rollout of highly sensitive stage 5 equipment across the sector, how are businesses guarding against the increased problems of fuel contamination when working in such a challenging environment?
That's for me.
You're welcome to continue, but I know
the
stage 5's more.
We've recently moved to a supplier that supplies all of our fuel for all of our sites. So, I mean, I think that's adding some consistency to delivery. But I mean, the tier 5 engine is very new here. We don't really have any in our fleet as of yet. We have tier 4 final, but we don't have tier 5 yet. But I mean, they're running high pressure, and the fuel's got to be super clean. So, the thing we're running into is mostly condensation water and stuff like that. But we've had problem with the diesel exhaust fluid freezing in some machines and stuff like that in winter conditions. So I'm sure everyone's running into that. But I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's just got to try and do their best with trying to keep the fuel clean.
And a question for Marcel. Are all regions and contractors the same when it comes to attachments? What are the main differences from very intensive markets such as Germany or the UK versus the USA?
We are actually global active, but at the same time we want to present to the local markets, to our customers. So that's why we have a growing dealer network. And so it's actually also that we started actually to engineer the high performance products. But you see also when you have to go to other markets where actually demolition is more or less, and with hydraulic tools actually on a much lower level, that we also design now, we call it the Eco line, actually a product with the D&RI DNA, but for in another price segment, and also with a bit lower performance, of course, because you cannot do the same, always be the best of trying to have the best equipment and the lowest price. So this is actually what we are doing.
That's great, thank you. Question about the electrification of equipment and hydrogen power for larger machines. So maybe, Riccardo, this is your one. Are demolition clients asking for more use of low emission machines?
Well, from what we can see, there is no real, let's say, difference in behavior and in demands by demolition contractors or generally the marketplace. So this is an area of machinery development which is getting more and more traction. It is an area where certain alternative energy sources indeed have a very important role to play. I go back to my initial arguments, initial points about urban settings where emissions and noise have to be limited. But also the machine size can be limited in terms, for example, of urban works. You can electrify a mini excavator or an average size machine. From what we know from a technology point of view, it is much more difficult to use electrification with bigger machines. We know there is the possibility of hydrogen, but say the low or net zero CO2 emission of hydrogen is still to be discussed. Of course, gray hydrogen is available, and there are energy-intensive industries like chemicals, which are already thinking about using it, but it's not at the level that we would need, and it's not as green as the policymakers in Brussels at the EU level are requiring. So we have mapped what we consider a bit of a transition towards 2050. 2050 is the EU decided goal for net zero carbon economy, and we know that construction and construction machine within construction have a role to play. So we have identified a roadmap for electrification, but we don't see specifically differences between I don't know, road building contractors or vertical construction contractors. There is an interest in all these new technologies. There is, of course, a premium price to be paid on certain machines. Some are more mature, and so the price delta is not that great. But there is, of course, a question of opportunity and availability of certain low or net zero CO2 technologies, which is not yet let's say finalized.
Okay, thank you. We'll stay with a few more audience questions because they're really grabbing the opportunity. So one here is, and it's another question for Ryan actually. How is the adoption of fully automatic quick couplers in Canada and the US, especially in your case because you deal with extreme weather?
Yeah, we have used the Oil Quick brand now for about 4 years, and we have probably about 50% of our fleet in the mid range of our fleet converted to Oil Quick, and it's definitely been very reliable for us overall, and it's been very good for our business overall. It's we have a lot of memes going around our office, you know, with the requests coming in from the field to our head office saying, if you don't send me an Oil Quick, I'm going to have a bad day type of thing. So we've been lots of jokes about it, but it's environmentally, we don't spill any. In the winter, you're not out there trying to undo a bolt or get your hands covered in oil and so on and so forth. So it's truly been, you know, much better for us overall. There is a bit of a period of time where everyone was not necessarily convinced that was going to last, but I would say probably some of our couplers have been changed out maybe 3,000-4,000 times now. So they change attachments on our job sites sometimes for, you know, minutes, change back again, and even transporting the equipment, the drivers pick it up, move it around, and so on and so forth. So it's become sort of mainstay at our company now, and they're expecting me to do the whole fleet sooner than later. So I'd say overall it's been very good for us.
Great, thank you. Question that is probably applicable to everybody on the panel in different ways, but what is the impact of BIM construction or digital construction? What impact is that having on demolition? Marcel, do you have a view?
Can you repeat the question, sorry, Steve?
What impact is BIM or digital construction having on demolition?
I think this will be more and more. So we are also working on a system that we can use the data from the tool, so temperature, working hours, oil pressure. Also actually to have a possibility to give your customer an advice to do maintenance. Unless it is very difficult to have a clear schedule what the wear is of a tool. It depends so much from the circumstances and the material you have to demolish or to cut. Or
we have a pretty in-depth system for scanning the building prior to a demolition to come up with our demolition plan and help us calculate different weights of the building and so on and so forth, so we can make sure we use the right size tool or attachment on the project. But as far as in machine use, we're only using it on the grading side, so we have our bulldozers equipped with it and so on and so forth, but none of our excavators have any necessarily BIM software in them. So the high reach, some of the high reach machines are, they have like safety systems equipped on board for safe working range and so on and so forth, but not necessarily connecting with the BIM modeling that we're doing for the actual demolition plan as of yet.
Just before I bring Riccardo in, I've noticed there's a few people using the chat function to ask questions. Nothing wrong with that in itself. Your questions are very welcome and do keep them coming. But if you wouldn't mind just using the Q&A, which is slightly to the left of it on my screen at least, and then I get all the questions in one list and they'll flow better for the panelists. So yeah, so Riccardo, BIM and digital construction.
Yeah, very quickly. Instead of let's say the perception right now in the market, I would like to share with you the feeling from Brussels again with policymakers behind a strong push for digital construction and everything that can fit under this buzzword. And the way this refers to demolition is very specifically, once again, enshrined in the Green Deal and the circular economy model that the EU is pushing. And that's the idea that we need to always know which type of product, materials, substances we're dealing with. We're demolishing or deconstructing, or so it is going to be more and more about recognizing that and recognizing that from the very beginning. So it's not really what demolition can do in terms of BIM. The push is to start building, to start actually designing any building or infrastructure, any element of the built environment, bearing in mind when you're going to have to demolish, decommission that or deconstruct that in order to separate as much as possible the waste streams, the elements. So that is going to be that is going to be doable only with digital technologies in it. And there is a very specific project the European Commission is designing for the Sustainable Products Initiative with digital building logbook, digital building passports that will really is really designed for the final phases of a building or of an infrastructure.
That's great insight, and thank you for sharing that with us. Question about remotely operated machines. The question's phrased, "Are you guys?" So I guess it's everybody, but in particular, Ryan, I guess, are you guys using remotely operated machines with the operator not on board, for example, inside a control room?
We don't currently use remote controlled excavators per se. We do have some Brocks. We have 3 Brocks that we use on projects, but we recently bought a machine, and it's a high reach machine, and it has the capability of being operated remotely. And the concept behind that is if you were to maybe work at a nuclear station or something like that, where you didn't want the operator in harm's way, you could actually remotely operate the machine. So that's a one-off for us, but we haven't really used that function very much ourselves yet. So I'd say it's going to be coming. I think I want a question on where do you think the operator will be? You know, if will the operator be working from home with a remote controlled machine? Will you be able to actually do that one day? If the guy's got to go to work and stand on the job site anyway in the cold and the rain, then why are you remotely operating? But if you could actually get somebody to work from home in an environment and actually load a dump truck, that would be pretty amazing. Maybe one day.
Be a hell of a skill to do that. A question for Marcel. When it comes to specialized attachment manufacturers such as D&RI, what are the points of friction with carrier manufacturers? And it says in brackets, plates, hydraulic pressure regulation.
The more pressure, the more bars we have, the better. So our equipment is actually good for 380 bar, where some others are at 320 or 350. But always with the design of the tool and the volume of the cylinders, we always look to the weight class of the machine that is corresponding with the overflow our system is requesting. But also there we have the advantage that we have the DEMA power system for the big demolition tools, where we use actually less oil comparison to the volume of the cylinder, because also the speed valve is working in two directions. So we look, of course, to the machines, and in the meantime, a lot of machines are in the specific machine class, weight class, concerning flow and pressure, more and more the same. But it's really important.
A question for all panelists. How important for this part of the industry is the item's maintenance costs, reliability, and environment? Marcel, you're welcome to continue.
Yeah, maintenance, actually standing still on the job site is what nobody wants. So that's also what we introduced actually in 2004, actually, that we have the tools completely equipped with wear parts, what you can change on the site. And you can make for yourself a kind of an exchange system so that the tool doesn't have to go back to the workshop. The point is also here that if you have wear on your tool, that the performance is going down dramatically. On the end of a demolition site, there's always time pressure. So actually the driver doesn't want to give the tool to the workshop, but is still working with the tool. And then the performance is going less and less. And if you're unhappy, actually you can break the tool because you have to move too much the bucket cylinder actually to come through the concrete or the steel. So that's really a big point. What we see also, of course, the wear parts have to be a reasonable price to have a low cost of ownership.
Thank you. Riccardo, anything to add?
Well, I think that total cost of ownership is of course a very important consideration out there on the job market. I've already mentioned on a couple of occasions in my previous statements, my previous points, the role that environment and environmental policy will play in shaping the market trends. So I will not get into that again. I think those are again discussions that take place in the market. I think dealers, the dealership network also has a big role to play in being closer to the final user. So we as manufacturer really always strive to organize that dealership network in the best way possible, and that has a big impact on those elements in the question.
Excellent. And Ryan, you see this from the other end, being a contractor.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very big part of our business here, and trying to come up with that calculation of how much it actually costs you when you're maybe broken down or the tool is not available. But I mean, the number can be staggering if you actually put pen to paper and count it all up. So this is probably going to be good for everyone to hear in the manufacturing complex world. It's to make the investment on these new tools, and then to make sure you're using the right tool for the job will actually give you better ROI than just using the wrong tool for the wrong job and keeping it maintained. So I think that the amount of different tools out there that you can use for demolition now is there. You can pick a tool that can specifically make improvement on the production dramatically. So I think picking the tool is number one, and then using the tool for the right job at the right time is number two. And then number three is then, you got to keep it maintained, to Marcel's point and, Riccardo's point. You got to have a whole support system back there for that to operate well. You have to be able to get out to the site and get stuff changed, and if it needs to come back to the workshop, get it back before it's too late. And It's a very big, that's a very good question, whoever asked that question. I don't think there's an easy answer.
If I may, Steve, just a very quick additional point here. We believe also that the role of data analysis through telematics is as a role to play as well, in the sense that predictive maintenance is much better than maintenance when a piece where a machine is has broken down. So that you organize your downtime in a way that it doesn't hurt too much. So that's something that we are very much looking at. Mainly in the world of the carriers, of course, but when a carrier is is down for maintenance and that has not been planned, of course everything is at a halt. Another very quick point to what Ryan said. I think what comes to mind when he's saying we need to always decide the best tool for the right job, that is operational efficiency, organizational efficiency. That also makes me believe there is a need to professionalize the demolition contracting business even more. I know of certain European markets in which the line is a bit blurry between a demolition contractor and a general contractor, where certain maybe not so big demolition jobs are made by a normal, if you allow me the word, construction contractor. So that, of course, maybe calls for a bit more specialization, training, knowledge of what you need from the machine.
Thank you. Well, we're coming up to the 45-minute mark for the webinar, but with the agreement of the panelists, I think we can easily do another 10 to 15 based on the number of questions. So with your permission, I'll dive back into the list of audience questions, and one for Ryan. Do you expect to see industry consolidation with bigger contractors taking advantage of economies of scale? I mean, maybe if we can keep that in a an equipment sense of the question rather than anything else.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see that happening, but I mean that could be a great thing in the future. I mean, I guess everyone had to be on board with the same business plan, I guess, for that to happen, I think is my answer.
Right, thank you. And a question for Riccardo, and managed to get 45 minutes in without mentioning COVID, so well done everybody. We're only mentioning it in a small number of occasions. Now that we're not surprised by all the changes of COVID, how is the confidence levels amongst manufacturers in Europe? What are your thoughts about upcoming trade fair events, most specifically Bauma 22, already being postponed?
Yeah, already been postponed. Well, that is I mean, the second part is definitely the $1 million question, and I don't get paid that much. So I think it's as I said before, the market trends in the market, there is optimism. We have looked at the V-shaped recovery that started late 2020, carried on to early 2021. In terms of sales, 2020 was not as bad as we feared in spring of 2020. Yes, certain machinery groups have fallen by 20%, but certain others have been stable. So overall, sales on the European market were only 10% below their 2019 figures. So even starting from there, the good trends, the increase in sales in early 2021, our business climate index, which we monitor every month with surveys to only industry leaders, one industry leader per company, is really at historically high levels. So, and that is a confidence index by definition. So we think we have again, we have wind in our sails. When it comes to the trade show, that is another, let's say, the other side of the coin, in the sense that these are, of course, market occasions, but they are confronted with the realities of our new normal, where huge events like Bauma with 650,000 people gathering in Munich over a week doesn't even seem imaginable. At least it doesn't seem imaginable to me. We have called for, and we are in favor of the postponement that Bauma decided last week. We believe that 6 more months to organize the show at the end of 2020 or in October 2022, like it is going to be the case, is a good decision. Is a good way of, let's say, putting all the chances on our side. A bit more time for vaccination. It'll be out of the summer, which is the best season against the pandemic, and we are all looking forward to getting back to some kind of normal. And the trade shows are part of our normal, and they are here to stay. Again. The $1 million question is how they will be shaped in the future, and I think that Bauma will tell us, Bauma 22 will tell us already how things are going to look in the future. But we are committed to our trade shows, and in a way, shape, or form, we look forward to meeting again in those big occasions for the industry.
Marcel, you're a European manufacturer, and being in the Netherlands, almost a next door neighbour of Bauma. How's your view on this?
I lost my sound. Sorry, Steve.
Oh, okay. No, the question was, you are, as D&RI, as a European manufacturer, and being based in the Netherlands, you're very close to Germany, where Bauma is. So, what is your view on the two parts of that question about about trade fairs and about the level of confidence for manufacturers?
Well, actually, if we go a little bit back, because I think we're also talking a bit about the Corona period, there we saw that we were not a restaurant, so we were not directly closed. But on the end, actually, after that period, we saw a slowdown also in Germany. And Germany is actually, I think, still one of the biggest market concerning numbers of tools, demolition tools in the world. You see now in Canada, US, it's coming up more and more, where a different way of working was. You see that actually more specialized with more tools. Actually, what Ryan also said, do the job with the right tool. So actually, since the end of last year, actually the confidence is back again. And we see now that we have a full order book, and we don't see anything about a Corona time at this moment concerning ordering numbers and quantities.
Excellent, thank you. A question to Ryan and Riccardo about waste management legislation. Who is the owner of demolition waste in Canada? That's Ryan's part of the question. And Europe, obviously Riccardo. Is it the owner of the buildings or the demolition contractor? I guess things like this do have a bit of a bearing on equipment.
Yeah, in Canada, the demolition contractor removes all the waste from site. So any of the waste that can be put to landfill or recycled would be the ownership of the contractor. But any of the contaminated or hazardous waste would be that of the owner. So the contractor will still arrange for it to be disposed of correctly, but ultimately the owner has to give you the information required to dispose of it properly.
And Riccardo, I guess Europe is it's a difficult area to generalize about, but
Well, it would be easy to generalize if I were a waste policy expert. I am not, but there is a waste framework directive at European level which sets responsibilities in one single way at European level. So the demolition contractor has a responsibility, the owner of the building has another responsibility. I know that there is a big discussion once again, and that is still in the policy discussions that are happening here in Brussels about extending the responsibility of the manufacturer. So adding another, in our opinion, at least another layer of complexity to the discussion when it comes to waste, when it comes to material that will become eventually waste. And some of our participants may have heard of the SKIP database, which is a European database, a first of its kind, where any manufacturer of any type of article, from a pen to a 50-ton excavator, has to report any hazardous substance present in its product, and has to report it in a database which is there to stay. And that will, of course, we're not talking only about demolition waste, construction and demolition waste, but it's really to give an idea of the way the policymakers are attacking themselves to the way we recycle, the way we reuse, and the way we dispose of anything.
We really are running out of time now, so perhaps as one final question, could I ask each of the panelists to offer a short key item for our audience to take away with them? So Marcel, as you're on the screen, maybe you'd like to go first.
No, that's fine. We always say in the end it is only about the right tool. Also here, Ryan is right. Use the right tool for the job. But there is another thing, and we see actually often that there is a lot of focus on the machine, on the tool carrier, and not always in the right way to the tool, because we think that at the end, the tool is doing the job. So the excavator can be so nice as it is, but at the end, the performance of the day, what you have done, how many cubic meters you have done, that's the tool doing. So the tool only needs all flow and all pressure, and has to be reliable, of course, but then it goes about the tool. And then you see sometimes, at least this is also very important in high reach demolition machines, that people spend $1 million for the machine, and they say, okay, it was a little bit more expensive as planned actually, so we have to reduce actually in the price what we want to spend on the tool, or we take a used tool what we still have, but then actually that investment is not giving what they want. So what I said with the demo power, we have a shear in the tool carrier, let's say 3 ton, what is a common weight on high reach demolition machines. Then it makes a big difference if you have 25% more power in the shear or not. And that is something I give the audience think really good about the tool and how important it is in the combination of machine and tool.
Thank you, Marcel. And Ryan, please.
Yeah, I think all in all, it's the ocean, the world is your oyster. You know, there's so many tools to pick from out there, and I mean, I've been to Bahamas, a bunch of times. I've been to the Con Expo a bunch of times, and I've been to various factories around the world. Actually, I grew up small town Ontario, Canada here, and we literally I got to see the world by doing demolition work. It's kind of fascinating for me personally. It's just been great. But I mean, at the end of the day, you see different ways of people doing different things, and there's always something to be learned around the world actually. So you got to try and keep yourself grounded, but making the decision on what to buy and where to buy and how much to spend, it's amazing when you look back. Sometimes I would say we've never really bought a tool ever that we didn't think was worth it in the end. We might have had a tool we might have had more trouble with or whatever, but every time we buy a tool, you know, we just recently bought a 9500 La Bounty. It's a great big shear to go second member on a Komatsu PC 1250. So it's our biggest shear. And when you're buying it, you're just like, oh my God, I'm spending so much money. But I'm sure in 2 years from now, I'll be like, oh my God, we couldn't have gone without it, right? So I think that it's definitely the tools that we're seeing and the machines that we're seeing today available to us is it's a little overwhelming, but it's always worth taking the plunge to go ahead and get one.
Very much. And Riccardo, last word to yourself.
Last word, building on the importance of the combination between the carrier and the tool, and since CC represents both manufacturers, I think that the key word still remains and has been for a while, collaboration. And we as an industry organization, we believe in collaboration also when it comes to policy making. The idea of turning some elements that may look like barriers, may look like challenges, may look like burdens, to turn them into opportunities, and that is what we do. What we try to do in Brussels. What we hope the industry will see as an added value by joining forces. And here I also am very proud of the collaboration that we have with the European Demolition Association, our friends at EDA. We organize occasions for our respective members to come together and discuss in a non-competitive environment, but in a compliant environment when it comes to competition law, and that I believe is the role that we always are proud of presenting to the industry.
Well, thank you, Riccardo, and thank you again to all of our panelists for giving their time and their expertise today. It's been a hugely thought-provoking webinar, and we're already getting feedback to that effect. So thank you. Once again, thank you to our event sponsors, Alu, Deharco, and the RVT Group. And most of all, thank you to you, the audience, for joining in and participating. There will be a recording of the event available soon, and you'll receive an email with details of how to download that. We will be running another webinar later in the year, so we'll keep you informed about that. One thing I can tell you about, no surprise, is the World Demolition Summit, which we're running as a live in-person event in Chicago, US, on the 20th and 21st of October. So if you've enjoyed today, or even if you've been to the Demolition Summit before, why not register for that as well? Details at www.demolitionsummit.com. But in the meantime, that's all for today. Thank you again, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.